Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Sumukascha Ekadantascha Kapilo Gajakarnakaha Lambodharascha Vikato Vignarajo Vinayakaha Dhumaketurganadhyakshaha Palachandro Gajananaha Vakratundaha Surpakarno Herambaha Skandapurvadaha Suklam Bharadharam Vishnum Sakivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarvavighnopashantaye यस्यद्वरदवक्त्राभ्याः पारिषद्भ्याः परस्पतम् विघ्नं निघ्नन्ति सततं विश्वक्सेनं तमाश्रये गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. Now, with Swami's faith, let us continue. We talk of 7 lokams. Om Bhuhu, Om Bhuvaha, Om Suvaha, Om Maha, Om Janaha, Om Tapaha, Ogum Satyam. No, we say that in the Gayatri Avahana mantra. Now, out of that, Bhulokam we know. That's a physical world we live in. Bhuvarlokam is what our mental world is. Suvarlokam is internally we all know when something is prompting us and that gives us lasting happiness. So, the most beneficent awareness that we have, that is a Suvarlokam. Then we saw how Sukhamani was explaining a yogi who's taken the path of yoga and proceeding on that, doing dharana and dhyanam and going towards samadhi. What happens to its level of consciousness and awareness? We saw that, and how he purifies himself of desires and finally arrives at the Maharlokam. And physically, we were discussing yesterday the Susumaram, which is denotes a crocodile, which is really the hub of the universe. And I suggest take a look at some NASA pictures. What we imagine to be the center of the universe, you will find that it is basically a very effulgent hub, and around which all the constellations and galaxies are moving around. But the galaxies themselves, they form the shape of the tail of a crocodile, this way and that way. When the crocodile flaps its tail, it'll be that shape, and so that's why it's called Susumaram. So physically, that's a location, that's a manifested area. Now, with the extreme subtleness, after leaving this physical body, the awareness, the consciousness of the yogi is so vast that even the yogic powers staying in earth, he can travel to the hub of the universe also, as people have done in the past. Now, once he comes to that hub, the very interesting thing takes place. That now, up to that point, it's physical creation, right? And there, this is now in Slokam 25, Tat Visvanabhim tu Ativartya Vishnoho Aniyasa Virajena Atmana Yekaha Namaskritam Brahmavidam Upaiti Kalpa Ayushaha Yate Vibudhaha Ramante. Tat Visvanabhim tu Ativartya Vishnoho Aniyasa Virajena Atmana Yekaha Namaskritam Brahmavidam Upaiti Kalpa Ayushaha Yate Vibudhaha Ramante. Now, going beyond the Sisumara, this hub of the universe, then the yogi takes even a more subtle form, because remember, the subtlest of the subtle is where Bhagavan actually is. There is the indwell really there. So he becomes even more subtle. And here, without being accompanied by any other devas, very important. We all have deities, we all pray to different forms of God, whether it is Indra or Varuna or whatever it is that we worship, right? But without being accompanied. In other words, there is no association with them. He has gone beyond that. And he goes into this lokam called Maharlokam. which is where great exalted rishis like self-realized souls like Bhrigu and all are living in that place. Now that place is also, it is in the manifest one day of Brahma, which is 4.32 billion years of our revolutions around the sun, is one day there. So remember that that's a lokam where Mahalokam is. And this is something that this the area where Ramante, where they are, there is a blissful state it is. But we go through the word by word meaning and then we will move on. Tat Visvanabhim to Ativartya. The Visvanabhim is very important. The Visvanabhim, Visvam, the whole universe. Nabhim, the navel, that's a place of birth. Right? We all know that. Like in our physical body, we relate it to the placenta, which is the place of birth, applies to the fetus in the mother's womb. We know that. And that's why we pictorially we represent Brahma coming out of the Nabhi of Vishnu. So in Visvanabhim, the birthplace, this is where the whole creation has come from, which we can physically relate to as being the hub of the universe. The whole universe is a manifested thing. At that point, to Ativartya, crossing over, going beyond that, Vishnoho Aniyasa, the extremely, Aniyasa means like Anu, we say, like an atom. It is very subtle, very subtle. And being further purified. See, there are desires, then we're going to talk about ahamkaram, and then there is also a feeling of separateness, all those things we're going to talk about. So the senses are being purified, the desires are being purified, but now further purification takes place. Virajena, further purified, and Atmana Yekaha Upaiti. Vishnoho Atmana Yekaha Upaiti. Atmana Yekaha, only by himself, without any other crutch, without any other support of praying to this form of God or that form of God, so many forms that we have, none of those crutches, just by himself. Not all alone, but in the company of the Supreme. And Ekaha alone, Vishnoho Namaskritam Brahmavidam Upaiti. Now, Brahmavidam, the Namaskritam, the worshipable, the one who deserves to be worshipped, that doing worship, doing prayer to that, doing worship to that, submitting to that, and Brahma Vidam Upaiti, Brahma Vidam, the Brahmas, the place known as Brahma Vidam, the place known as Brahma's Lokam, the Brahma Lokam or Sathya Lokam as we call it, Upaiti, he attains it. From Mahar Lokam, he goes into the Sathya Lokam, Brahma's sphere. Kalpa Ayushaha, Kalpam, is one day of Brahma. How do we know this is Maharlokam? Because it says Kalpa Ayusha, this 4.22 billion years, yet which one? Vibhudaha Ramante, Vibhudaha, self-realized souls like Bhrigu Maharishi and all that, Ramante, they are in blissful state. In this area, they are all living. But Visvanabhim tu Ativartya Vishnoho Aniyasa Virajena Atmana Yekaha Namaskritam Brahmavidam Upaiti Kalpa Ayushaha Yat Vibhudaha Ravante. Number 26. Then what happens after that? Atho Anantasya Mukha Analena Dandahyamanam Saha Niriksha Visvam Nirjati Udeswara Jushta Dishniyam Yat Dvaiparardhyam Tat U Parameshtyam. Now, the 25, he was in Maharloka. Slokam 25. So from there, Ataha, after that, Anantasya Mukha Analena, Anantasya, the Adiseshan, on whom Bhagavan Srimad Narayana is reclining. So what does this Adiseshan do? Mukha Analena, the fire that comes from the face of that Adisesha, is Ananta, Dandasyamanam, burning to ashes. That means we call the Pralayam. This is the intermediate dissolution or disappearance, dissolving of things. At the end of one day of Brahma, the night time of Brahma, all the manifestations are withdrawn or they all disappear, right? So that is what this means. Mukha Analena, through the fire that's emitted from Anantasya, Adisesha, Daddahyamanam, completely burning to ashes. Saha, that yogi, Nirikshya, he sees this, that the Pralayam has come. He is not interested in the manifested world. He is always, constantly and continuously in the company of Bhagavan only. So, he leaves the Maharlokam and goes to Siddheswara Jushta Dishniyam. The Siddheswara Jushta Dishniyam. Siddheswara, people who have achieved Siddhic powers. Siddhic powers means you can transport your awareness and consciousness can expand and you can be at any place that you want. And what they do, Jushta Dishniyam means it's in crudely translated, it is the spatial vehicles. Okay, using those basically with subtle body, yet where Dvaiparardhyam, the two parardas. Okay, parardas, one paradhyam denotes the 50 years of Brahma's life. Okay, it's Brahma has got 100 years, 100 Brahma years. The first the first paradhyam is called Prathama paradhyam. We are under the Dvitiya paradhyam, the second paradhyam. So in that world of Brahma, the Sathya Lokam, that yogi who Parameshtyam, the exalted world of Brahma, he reaches. And that area, Brahma's Lokam, is as Brahma himself did, tapas. So they continue their smaranam and keeping the company of Bhagavan. Continue that. Because Maharlokam also dissolves and disappears at the end of one day of Brahma. Now, number 27. This Satyalokam or Brahmalokam, where Brahma's abode is, where the creation, the creative aspect is effulgent in full splendor. That lokam is na yatra shokaha, na jara, na mrityuhu, na artihi, na cha udvegaha, rute kutaschit, yat chit tataha adaha kripaya anidam vidam, duranta dukkha prabhava anudarshanat. Now, after finishing this, I will take you through how manomulam idam jagat. Please, that's the truth, which means all this are in our mind only. So what does this mean for an internal journey? We're talking about intellectually where it is. But what does it really mean? That we will cover after the slokam. 27. Na yatra shokaha, na jara, na mrityuhu, na artihi, na cha udvegaha rute kutaschit. Yachit tataha adaha kripaya anidam vidam duranta dukkha prabhava anudarshanat. This Satyalokam, Brahmalokam, na yatra, where, na shokaha, there is no misery, na jara, there is no old age, na mrityuhu, there is no death, na artihi, there is no suffering, na cha udvegaha, there is no anxiety. Udvegam, something that comes from within us, it means that's rajasic, that means the anxiety. And na cha udvegaha, rute kutaschite, there is no suffering, there is no misery, there is no old age, there is no death. There is There is no anxiety, except kutaschit, sometimes there may be. What is it sometimes? Yet chit tataha adaha kripaya anidam vidam duranta dukkha prabhava anudarshanat. What is the sometimes there may be a little bit of anxiety, concern, worry, whatever. What is it? Yet chit tataha, the knowing which the out of adaha means compassion, the love, prema, that is pouring forth uncontrollably. So much love is there. Why Bhagavan is always looking after us? Because he is so much concerned about our welfare. So he cares and takes care. He's always thinking of us. Every suffering that we go through, Bhagavan knows it. So he wants us to be happy and he removes our suffering. Please remember that. He removes our suffering. Then we bring on additional suffering on ourselves. He continues to remove that. And that is what is reflected here. With Adaha, through that infinite compassion, kripaya, to the mercy, to the heart pouring out. Where is it pouring out? Anidam vidam. Anidam vidam. Not knowing the merits, not knowing the panacea of doing divine service, not really serving Bhagavan, not even knowing, not even wanting to, not inclined towards that. Anidam vidam. Duranta dukkha. Duranta, unsurpassable, extreme dukkha, difficulties. Prabhava anudarshanat. It is manifesting. Anudarshanat. They see people like us suffering and miserable, unsurpassable miseries keep on coming one after another. We get a break, then we get another misery. And all this comes about because we don't know, we are not inclined to serve Bhagavan, to do divine service. Anidam vidam. What does Bhagavan service mean? Manava seva, Madhava seva. You serve the fellow human beings, fulfill wholeheartedly the need of the needy. Could be hunger, could be clothes, could be worry, fear, whatever it could be. Whatever the need is, or could be they want some money, but never, of course, never share money. That is because money makes many wrongs and that creates lots of problems. But this doing the service of Bhagavan, and Bhagavan says, you just put one or two of my teachings into practice. That is enough for me. One or two, any of those, he has given so many teachings. Take Bhagavad Gita, there are so many ways that we can serve him. Just follow one, or maybe two, not even two, just one sincerely in your life. And that is doing Bhagavan service. But we don't do that. Therefore, we get into all these difficulties. Looking at our difficulties and looking at our ignorance, that we are not taking the right path. The people in Sathya Loka, the yogis, they, out of that compassion pouring out on us, they are concerned about us. Sometimes, why are they suffering like this? Even though they are living in a world there is no suffering. Na yatra shokaha, na jara, na mrityuhu, na artihi, na cha udvegaha rute kutaschit. Yat chit tataha adaha kripaya anidam vidam duranta dukkha prabhava anudarshanat. Now, mentally what happens when you do the dharanam and dhyanam, it is a mental exercise. You focus on Bhagavan, his lotus feet, his lotus hands, lotus face, whatever it is so beautiful, and you focus more and more on it, as Sukha Muni taught us, starting from the feet and staying there for some time. Picture that very clearly. Once that picture is stable, go up to the legs. The picture that, put that, like that, each part we must imprint it. And then when you have this beautiful picture in your mind, keep on thinking about it as you do your work. Beginning, during the work, end of the work, doesn't matter. Keep on thinking. That's how we do the dharana. We learned that from Sukha Muni. When you do that, what happens to your mind? Slowly and steadily, the desires become less and less. The desire for Bhagavan increases, all other desires go away. Then they reach the world of Agni. All other desires they become extinguished. Then the so-called Maharlokam. You become subtle, keeping the company of Bhagavan. And then you live in the company of Satyam, truth. And truth, Satyam, Dharmam, Shanti, Premam, Ahimsa, all these one and the same. There is no difference at all. As we saw, Trikarana Suddhi takes place. We saw that in one Slokam. It happens personally. The mind becomes pure, the words become pure, and the actions become pure. They're all in alignment. So the journey goes on internally, finally keeping the company of Satyam in Satyalokam. Then where there is really, once in the company of Bhagavan, effulgence all the time, there is no misery there, there is no old age, there is no death, there is no suffering. Still, those Mahans, those yogis, the people like Ramana Maharshi or Ramakrishna Paramahamsa or Kanti Paramacharya, people like that, even though they are in bliss all the time, they are still concerned about our welfare and want to show us. That is the meaning of this slokam that we covered so far. So it's a very extremely personal thing. So you can digress and take a detour and look at it physically as the universe. Nothing wrong in that. That is one way of understanding it, but you cannot touch it. The moment you bring it internal and take it as a personal journey towards these various lokangas, then you begin to, your heart will expand like you wouldn't believe. And the expansion of the heart, expansion of the hridayam is what is taking place. Now going to slokam number 28. Tataha Vishesham. Now what happens after the yogi reaches the Satyalokam? Tataha Vishesham Pratipadhya Nirbhayaha Tena Atmana Apaha Anala Murtihi Atparanna Jyotirmayaha Vayum Upetya Kale Vayu Atmana Kham Brihat Atmalingam. Number 28. Tataha Vishesham Pratipadhya Nirbhayaha Tena Atmana Apaha Anala Murtihi Atparan Jyotirmayaha Vayum Upetya Kale Vayu Atmana Kham Brihat Atmalingam. Now, when your heart is expanding and you're able to visualize the whole Vishwam, Vasudevakam, Vasudevaka Kudumbakam, the whole thing as part of your own family. You don't consider anybody as different from you. Just your one family, Bhagavan's family it is. But expanded feeling, truly it is there. Then, beautifully, the universe, Prakriti, starts disappearing. And how does that happen? And because you go from all the gross manifestations into subtler and subtler manifestations. And first, very beautifully, he merges, you become one with earth, the bhumi. Then they come with vayu, with fire, like that. All the panchabhutangal, and you become one with them. They're not separate from you. Then finally merge in the akasha itself, which is nothing but the very huge, gigantic form of Bhagavan. Okay, the indweller. Tataha, after that, Vishesham in a very specific, particular manner, in a very special manner, Pratibadhya, after attaining this Satyalokam, in a very special manner, Nirbhayaha, without any sense of fear, because fear comes only when there is a feeling of separation. When there is feeling of no separation from Bhagavan, there is no fear. So Nirbhayaha, without any fear, Tena Atmana, Tena his, the yogi, Atmana, this subtle body keeps moving, Apaha with water, Analam with fire, and Murtihi with the various forms that one sees, and Atparanne, he goes beyond all that. Jyotirmaya Vayum Upetya Kale Vayuhu Atmana Kam Brahat Atmalingam. The Jyotirmaya, effulgent, Vayum Upetya. The Upetya, again going beyond, having reached it and going beyond that. Kale Vayuhu Atmana. This Kam Brahat Atmalingam. Crossing and going beyond each one of these 5 elements. And remember, the earth is the grossest of the Panchabhutanga, 5 elements. Then comes the next one, right, which is Vayu. Then you got the water. Then you got Vayu. Then you got fire, and then finally fire, and then Vayu, and then the Akasha. So from the gross to the subtle one, he goes forward, goes beyond that, becomes subtler and subtler and subtler, merges with it, finally merges with the Akasam itself. Kam means Akasam. Brihat Atmalingam. It is a gigantic form of the lingam, the form of Atma itself, becomes one with it. Ataha Vishesham Pratipadhya Nirbhayaha Tena Atmana Apaha Analamurtihi Atvaran Jyotirmayaha Vayum Upetya Kale Vayu Atmana Kam Brihat Atmalingam. Then what happens? He's gone over the Panchabhutanga, but then still there are the subtle aspects of the elements are there, right? And that is what now he goes beyond. He actually dissolves all that. The differences that come, he dissolves each one. For example, Granena Gandham Rasanena Vai Rasam Rupam Tu Drishtaya Sasanam Tu Cha Eva Sotrena Cha Upetya Nabha Gunatvam Pranena Cha Akutim Upaiti Yogi. Now, our time is just coming up, so let me finish the sloka. Granena Gandham. Now, when Gandham means fragrance, you smell. Granena, smelling. We all smell a rose or the various fragrances we smell. But if you just think for a moment, and what is that smell, what is that fragrance, and what is the smelling that I do, then you can dissolve the smelling action into the essence of the fragrance itself. And one of my favorite examples, which I always enjoy personally, you taste something, a sweet you enjoy, fine, or any other food item that you enjoy, and you know you're tasting it, and it is very happy. But then it is not the food item that is tasty. It is not your tongue that is tasty also. It is the sweetness, the essence of taste that is in both of them that makes a unison there. So you can enjoy it like that. So each of the 5 senses that we employ, each one, seeing and hearing and smelling and touching and tasting and all that, each one of that, the yogi brings that into the essence of that particular aspect of the sense. This is what the sloka means. Granena Gandham, smelling in the essence of the fragrance. Rasanena Vai Rasam, the tasting in the essence of that taste itself. Rupam Tu Drishtaya, the form that you see, even the seeing in the essence of the form that you see. Swasanam Tu Cha Eva, Swasanam, the contact, the touch that we make. In the act of touching itself, the essence of it. Sotrena cha upetye nabaha gunatvam pranena. Now, the swasanam means, slotrena means hearing. And upetye, we saw that going beyond it. And how does the hearing happen? Nabaha gunatvam pranena. Nabaha gunatvam. See, when you hear something with your ears, we all know scientifically there are sound vibrations coming through atmosphere, and the sound does not travel through vacuum. We know that. So the moment I hear something and I hear the sound, and then I look at it as disturbances in the medium that is surrounding me. We call it the ether, air, or whatever, atmosphere, or whatever. So I look at the essence of what is happening there in that sound. So I dissolve and focus my hearing into that, into the essence of it. So Nabaha Gunatvam means that one. So Pranena here means all the various sense organs that we just described, the 5 of them. Okay, he focuses on the essence of that action by that sense organ. That's the basic meaning here. Then doing that, Akuti, he puts that in their respective functions. Smelling, the nose smell, but he puts it into the action of smelling, which goes to the taste, the essence of what is being smelled. Tasting the same way, and touching the same way. Each of the action of the sense organ, the yogi is able to go to the essence of the activity of the sense organ. Doing that, upaiti, yogi upaiti, he attains, he goes beyond the elements of the sense perception, so to speak. There's a sense organ, there's an object that is being perceived, and an essence that is being perceived. Now, if you look at it, it may sound complicated. It's actually very simple. How do we relate to the world around us? Only through the 5 senses. That is why they're called Jnana Indriyanga. 5 senses, that's all. If I don't have my eyesight, my ears are not functioning, I'm not able to smell, I'm not able to speak, I lose my sensory thing on my skin, what do I perceive? Nothing. So the whole world is we perceive or cognize only through these 5 senses, these organs, and each one of them has a corresponding sense of the object. Like eyes can see only form, they cannot hear. Ears can only hear, they cannot see a form. Like that, each one has got a particular function. When I look at it that way and go to the essence of the function, then I merge in that. That is what a yogi does. By doing that, he transcends the sense organs, the sense perceptions also, not only the organs, but also the perceptions made by the senses. So it's a very beautiful way of advancing as you move through. Okay. First, desires have to be given up. And after this, all these things take place. Granena gandham rasanena vai rasam rupam tu drishtaya sasanam tu cha eva sotrena cha upete nabha gunatvam pranena cha akutim upaiti yogi. Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om. Now, when the question comes, desires are gone and I've overcome my sense perceptions, right? And in other words, I'm no longer perceiving the world differently. What is left? That we will see with Bhagavan's grace in next class, and that will be next Tuesday.